please go click the link in the bio and register to go to the Hyphen retreat. It's going to be great. We're going to have a lot of fun. That registration, it's $50 early registration. That's going to cover you getting in, your 2 meals, dinner and breakfast, and then a stay in the dorms and campground gratuity. And then March 1st is when it ends, is when early registration ends, and then it's going to be $60 after that, so $10 more. So just try to register by March 1st so that you get that early registration. And then once you do register, please text me, Hannah, Edward, and let us know that you're going, because we need to decide if everybody's just going to take their own car and carpool or if we're going to take a van. So let us know if you're going to be going. It's going to be a lot of fun. Afterwards, after the service on Saturday, we're going to make a trip to Disney Springs so that we can get lunch together and just kind of hang out for a little bit before we have to drive back. Okay? Let's see. So this month we were going to do a field day, but we've decided to postpone it. It was going to be the 29th. We've decided to postpone it to April, and we'll have that date out for you because we want to do more. We wanted to do like a barbecue and other things, so we're going to try to make it as amazing as possible. So we're going to postpone to April. We are still going to do a hangout this month. We're going to do a separate guys and girls hangout. So the guys, I think, are going to do paintball. So I don't know how much it's going to be. You'll have to get with Edward. He's going to get that information. And then the girls are going to do a spa day. We're going to figure out all the details, and then we'll obviously put the information out or text you. Let's see. I think that's everything. Am I missing anything? No? All right, you guys ready to start? All right, so tonight we are doing a relationship talk panel. And I feel like there's like nobody in these front rows, so that's really awkward. If you guys want to move up. Yeah, it is a little intimidating talking about relationships, you know. So we have our panelists here. Pastor and First Lady Kyle. We love our pastor. And then we also have our wonderful music director and his wife, Jesse and Gretchen. And we are so happy that they said yes to do this. Pastor and Sister Kyle have been married for, wow. All right, cool. So that is really, I love that. That is really amazing. So 100 years, 33 years. Wow, that's amazing. 33 years, you guys. And then we also have Jesse and Gretchen who have been married for almost 2 years. I love that. So they're still in a little bit of a honeymoon phase, so I'm sure they still have great advice. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to ask the questions. They have also already seen the questions, so they kind of have an idea of what we're asking. We're going to try to... I'm not? Oh, okay. Well, you do sound smart and intelligent, but research is always good, okay? Scientists. All right. So, science. All right, we're going to go ahead and start. Let me just open it up here.
We were supposed to read.
Actually, oh, you didn't read them? Oh, no. All right, that's okay. All right. All right, so let's see. This is question number 1. What can a young adult who is ready to be married do or specifically pray for when they feel they have exhausted their chances of meeting someone, especially having gone to every church event, being involved, and even facing denial from someone they were interested in? These are some talking points. Do you want me to say those, or you guys just want to go off of that?
We could just...
All right, go ahead, Jesse.
So I think the first thing to pay attention to is your relationship with God, obviously. I found out through trial and error that you can put yourself in all the right places and meet a bunch of people and still never really find the person that you're looking for. So I think during the interim, during the time that you're seeking, you really just gotta focus on your relationship with God, what He's called you to do, getting yourself to the place where you need to be. And I found that God will align you and align you with the person that you're supposed to be with.
Does anybody else have anything else they wanna say on that? I know that I had asked some other things. What are some other ways of meeting people? Is online dating a yes or a no? How long should I wait to date someone who is new to church or backslidden and recently returned?
So let's, the question actually points out some really valuable things to think about. It's what Jesse hinted on at the very first part of his answer. So what can a young adult who's ready to be married, and we all understand what that means, right? So we use the phrase, the biological clock is ticking, these kinds of things. Anyway, you're 20-something years old, whatever, you're ready for marriage. We understand that. Do specifically pray for when they feel they have, and here's the problem. They have exhausted all their chances of meeting someone, especially having gone to every church event, being involved and facing denial from someone, etc. And I think this is one of the mistakes that young people or people seeking a date make, or a spouse, is that we focus more time on trying to find that person rather than spending our time really building a relationship in Christ and trusting God to bring that person into our life. Now, I'm not a big soulmate kind of guy. We can get to that later. I don't mean that you're not my soulmate. After 35 years, souls have a way of entangling with one another. But however, though, it's like everything else that is going to be a true blessing from God. You're going to find it on the path of building a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's where it's going to be. Anything you find off of that path is going to bring heartache and pain. Jesus, remember, the Lord is the one that said, I will give you the desires of your heart. So it's not us who should pursue the desires of our heart. We should pursue Christ and let Him give us the desires of our heart. He knows what we love, what we want. And I remember when the first time I saw this pretty little lady right here to my left, I could have took her by the hand and walked out of that chapel and went straight to a justice of peace and got married. I didn't need to date her. We didn't need to talk. She was gorgeous. We just needed to go get married. We'll figure everything else out later. No, I'm just kidding. Something just clicked, and the Lord put it together. Now, I'm not trying to be too spiritual at this. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with dating, talking, calling, reaching, making friends, and doing all of these things. But we have to find that little line to make sure we don't cross it, where we become aggressive in trying to fulfill what we think is God's will in our life, trying to fulfill desires of our heart in our life. And we become aggressive in that rather than pursuing Jesus Christ. And every one of us in this room know at the moment you leave the path from pursuing your relationship with Christ, whatever you find will bring you heartache and pain. We have all experienced that. So stay on the path, pursue Christ, and let Him fulfill these desires in your heart. And I'll try not to take so long on the next 28 questions.
Okay, that was really good. Okay, next question is, so you're both going to answer this, and you can decide whoever wants to. What do you fight about the most?
Both.
I put like both.
Oh, it's in both couples.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gretchen.
Okay.
I hear from you.
So, is it on? You can hear me? Okay. So Jesse and I don't really fight because it's kind of like not in my. I'm gonna be honest. It's not in my, like, I don't get loud. I don't get aggressive. Like, if something's wrong with me, I just shut down. I mean, like, I'm not talking to you. Like, you could be trying to have a conversation with me. Like, it's not happening because, like, I just don't know how to express, like, if I'm upset or not. But, like, this goes back to, I remember on Sunday, I'm sorry guys, on Sunday, Hannah was with my brother and I, and she's like, I can never tell what you and Mike are thinking. I'm like, it's because we were raised that way. Like, we just don't know how to communicate our emotions. And so, like, if I'm upset about something, I'm not going to be like, hey, this is how I feel. I just shut down, and we're just not going to talk till, like, I feel like I'm ready to talk, which is the next day or 2 days later, or in a really long letter or a really long text message. But I'm getting better at it to where it's just like, just give me a couple hours and I'll, like, man up enough to say, this is what happened, this is how I feel about it. So work on your communication skills so that you guys, if you guys fight, it's like I can't think of the word.
You're communicating how you're feeling.
Yeah, there you go. At least you're communicating how you're feeling.
All right, so yeah, communication, that is very important.
So what do we fight about the most? Well, first let me say that we'll define the word fight, and that is, to my knowledge, I think maybe twice in 35 years, my wife has heard me raise my voice in anger to her, maybe twice. My kids have heard me raise my voice in anger twice a day for as long as they've been alive. So, but that doesn't, just because you don't raise your voice doesn't mean you don't become very angry and really upset, such as Gretchen over here shutting down. God only knows what's going through her mind versus what she's actually putting on the letter.
I didn't go in details.
Trust me, whatever went in that letter was not really what was up here, but you just got to find that balance. So with Elizabeth and I, if we're going to get specific, she reminded me, I asked her, I said, what do we fight about? And then she said something that just like made me mad instantly. And I knew that that's what we fight about. So I would basically call it a pet peeve. And one of my pet peeves with my wife is she's always trying to help somebody, always trying to make something better, to take a situation and get in there and make it better. And we all know that is a recipe for disaster most of the time. And so majority of the time I have to come behind her and fix what she was trying to fix. And so we will kind of fight over that. But I think the real point here, and I'm doing my best not to be pastor or anything like that here tonight, is not so much what do we fight over the most, but how do we overcome this? How do we respond in this fight? How do we recognize that we're doing something that aggravates our spouse so that we can fix that and change that, and readjust that? So we haven't figured that out yet, but it's only been 35 years, so 33 years.
How about you being a pastor and, pastoring people who fight, what's the most common thing that you run into as a pastor of other people?
With marriages?
Yeah, with marriages.
With relationships?
Yeah.
Well, in marriage, it's the two most common things is finances and sex with the wrong partner. Okay, so sorry, I'm just trying to. So
I can see how much.
I don't see anything wrong with it.
I'm from Louisiana, guys. We're just kind of saying like. So that's really the two major areas that we see. So people not being faithful, and then finances, how you handle your finances, which I think is a question a little later on. We'll get to that. And to my knowledge and Elizabeth's knowledge, there's nothing I ever do that actually makes her mad.
Did you want to say something about that? Okay.
No, he's always right.
Okay.
Where do I find one of them?
Well, all right, guys.
It will cost you dearly.
All right, so the next question is actually about finances. So we want to know who handles the finances in your marriage. Do you use a specific method? And I have some other questions, but we'll kind of go off of that, and then we'll go from there, because I feel like maybe you'll answer them as we're talking.
So we're fresh. We're still figuring all that out. But I basically handle the finances. I had a little bit more experience with it, and so she just went with it. So yeah.
I handle the finances on this side, but we always discuss what we're going to spend. If it's over 5, we discuss.
$5.
Not 5 grand. Yeah.
Oh.
We sit down and we look at it, we dissect it, and then we both agree on it. If one of us don't agree on it, then it's a done deal. We don't do it.
We try to do that too. We do discuss most of our purchases above like just buying food or something at work, and we use a budgeting app, and once a month we sit down and we go through all of our budget for the next month, and we try and stick to that, which food always gets out of hand, food and groceries, but yeah.
Every single time.
So let me make a little comment on this. I think maybe the underlying question is there a right way to do that? Right. So is there a biblical versus logical, or just the right way? Should the man do the finances? Should the woman do the finances? And I think what you're going to find in relationships is that really sort of boils down to personalities and spending habits. There's a reason she controls the finances. She buys $3 gifts. I buy $30,000 gifts. And so she handles the finances so that we do have food on the table. And I said, but the car's so pretty. But we have to eat. But it's, I'm kidding. So, no, I'm not, actually. It's true. So she handles the finances. We learn quickly that is definitely the best way in our relationship. Now, I want to say this, though. It's extremely important that both partners stay involved.
Yes.
Because if you don't, it leans to temptation or opens the door for the one spouse maybe to abuse the finances. I'd say my wife has ever done that, but to abuse the finances and to create a debt that should not have been there, where both people would have been involved. So one can do it, but both need to always be aware of what's going on.
I'll say one more thing about that, about what Pastor just said, about both being aware. When we first started, I kind of managed everything, and she didn't really care about the finances, so we didn't talk about everything that we made. So whenever she would come and ask me for money, and I would look at the finances and I would tell her, yeah, we can't do that, I started feeling like a bad guy. So that's when I roped her in. I'm like, you're gonna see exactly what we're making so that I don't feel bad about saying no to you.
She gets stirred up.
Okay, so also, like, before I got married, I was also that person that, like, okay, so I would get my paycheck, pay tithe, pay my phone bill, and then I splurged. So if I bought something that made me broke till the next paycheck, I was broke till the next paycheck. That was just my life. And so, like, when we got married, I just felt like it was smarter for him to take care of the finances. And I remember when we first got married, I went out, had a shopping day without telling him. I come home with, like, new clothes, and he's like, so when did we talk about buying the sweater? And I felt so attacked, because I'm just like, I deserve this sweater. Like, I've worked so hard for this sweater. And it was because we never talked about our finances. Like, I didn't even know if I even had money to spend to buy that sweater, but I bought the sweater anyways. So I do encourage you guys to speak to each other about what you purchase instead of just letting one person do it by themselves.
So let me lean into, launch off of that. So what she's really saying is, when the Bible says we become one, right? Finances is an area in your life with your spouse that you definitely need to become one with. It's very important that you discuss. It would have been a beautiful thing if Jesse would have found out that you wanted that sweater, and then Jesse went and bought that sweater for Valentine's. Then you would have had your sweater, Jesse would have been rewarded for it, and things would have been great. Okay. All right. Okay, now, this is a problem. When a couple comes into my office and this is going on in their finances, I already know if they don't fix this, their marriage is doomed. There's nothing I can do to fix their marriage. When they walk into my office and they tell me that they have separate bank accounts and that each of them make their money and they put their money in their own account, and then he's responsible for the rent and she's responsible for the electric, and so they pay their bills, right? But neither knows what the other has, and neither has access to the other accounts. And what that does is it opens up the door of temptation. We, as husband and wife, must be accountable to one another with our finances. There should be one account. Now, there's nothing wrong with a spending account. My wife gives me an allowance. She used to. She quit doing that a while back. Now I beg for money every once in a while. And so I'll have to go up to Hannah every couple of months and go, has any seed money come in? I'm broke. I mean, right now, I actually have $36 in my account. So that's it. And that's where I'm limited until something comes in. So I'm trying to get her back to giving me, $100 a month, something. Let me have something. But where was I going?
He just wants some money.
So one account. It's okay to have a small spending account, right? But really, the money should go into one. It's not. Jesse's not responsible for the rent, and Gretchen's responsible for the lights. We're both responsible for the rent, and we're both responsible for the lights. We're both responsible for all the bills. Everything goes. Then, when it's done, and you look at it, you're not able to say, well, 23% of that was mine, or 75% of that is mine, or my account's bigger than yours, and none of that exists. It's just one amount, and you decide together. Can we go to McDonald's and have a fish sandwich tonight, or can we not? And so, please, if you're married and you're not combining your finances, do it. When you get married, that is something you need to focus on, and being one in your finances is very important.
That's good. Some other questions to kind of go off of this, and I personally wonder about this myself sometimes. Should we have separate accounts for savings, emergency fund, gifts? Gifts is a big one, and vacations.
You control the money. I don't know.
Yes. Well, I used to have a savings account.
Get personal.
Yes, I think you should, every time you get through with all your bills at the end of the month or end of the week, that every how often you put some back for a rainy day. You just never know what's going to happen. Medical emergency. You want to go on a vacation. Now you have the money without having to dip into your grocery money or your rent money. So yes, definitely have a savings account.
And one more question on finances. How much money should you have saved before marriage, and how much money should you have saved consistently?
Jesse, from experience, you want to answer that? Since you're freshly married.
I can't really give you a good answer. I think the safe thing to say would be 6 months worth of expenses, ideally, but I didn't have that. But I serve a good God.
We went with the 6 days, right?
6 days, yeah, basically.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, at all times, six months worth of expenses in case something happens and you can't work. You're able to pay your bills up until hopefully you can get back on your feet before 6 months.
Okay. So just one little quick thing to add to this. Not that this is practiced by a lot of people, but it certainly brings stability to your relationship and your marriage. And it will also help remove the variable of emotional spending. And that, that's where we get in trouble. You get depressed, so you go out and buy a sweater. I don't know where that came from, it's just kind of like floating around the air. Or you get in a mood for something, so you grab the money and you go. So setting up accounts where it's a vacation account. Now, it could be one account, but it's just subgrouped, right? So, there's a certain amount for vacation, a certain amount for Christmas gifts. And if you'll set that amount for Christmas gifts, this is what we're spending, we're not spending over, it does two things for you. One, it stops you from pulling your credit cards out and going in debt that you're going to regret for the next 5 years. Two, it helps you shop better. Let me say three. Three, it helps you understand that value of a gift is not what it costs. And until you go out and only have a certain amount of money and you try to buy your gifts with just a certain amount of money, that's when you can appreciate the fact that the value of a gift to someone is not so much as how much it costs. So by setting up little sub-accounts, it'll help you control emotional spending. That until we have this amount of money to go on vacation, we don't go on vacation. It takes us 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it takes. And then same thing with gifts and etc. Okay, sound good? Yeah, we don't do that.
It does sound good. All right, next question. How did you avoid lowering your standards, handling loneliness, pressure from family and friends to be married as you reached your mid-late 20s? Yeah, I think that one's for you.
Well, first thing is you try and ignore all of the outside pressure because it really doesn't have anything to do with your future. Everybody's got their own opinions, but you just have to try and block those out and don't let those push you to make decisions because you'll mess up every time. What was the rest of the question? Lowering standards. That did not happen with me. Actually, God gave me everything I prayed for and more. So,
Yeah. You married up, buddy.
What I was saying, you're very right. What I was saying before about the hunt, it's like you can really spend a whole lot of time and energy searching and trying to put yourself in the right youth events and just trying to find that right person, and that you could become distracted and inundated with it, and you still won't find that person. But the minute that you start getting focused with what you're supposed to be doing for God, if you're at the place where it's time for you to find a spouse, God's going to align you with that person. And you don't have to, try and go to every single event. And I was planning on, I told my wife, I was planning on starting to go out of state to some other out of state events, like church events and stuff. But the minute I said, you know what, I actually was tired. I was just like, all right, I'm done. I'm done searching. And I just started focusing on the music ministry and just focusing on my relationship with God. And it was one day outside of church here, I was talking with Holly. Where's Holly at? Yeah, we were over there chatting, and Gretchen walked by, the same girl I'd seen for years and never really thought twice about. And that day, there was just like a light that just surrounded her, and I saw her, and I was just like, Holly, how about Gretchen? And I was head over heels, and then I think it was not too long after that I heard her preach, and I was just like, I'm gonna marry that girl. So yeah, just stay focused on God. Seriously.
All right, I love that story. All right, we're gonna talk about forgiveness. Has your spouse done something that was hard to forgive or get over? What are some ways you avoided outbursts, yelling, or staying angry when your spouse hurt you unintentionally? Do you practice never go to bed angry, or is there room for this to be accepted to take time to get over a wrong done to you? Go ahead.
Okay, so like I said, I am working on this. But for the last year, I mean, we've only been married 1.5 years, but for the last year, I would go to bed angry. And like, if I'm upset, it's a bad night for the both of us. Like, I'm tossing, I'm turning, I'm like, there's been times where he would go to sleep, I'm so upset, I'm like, how is he sleeping right now? I am upset, you need to, talk to me about this. Or like, I'll go to the couch and I'll cry my eyes out, and then my mind wanders, I should have never gotten married, and all this foolishness, you guys, over like the smallest thing, like literally something that he said that he didn't even think meant anything, and I took it to heart, and I'm over here harboring it inside my heart, not wanting to talk about it. But now I've gotten to the point where it's just like, we need to talk about this before I go to sleep, or else like it's just gonna ruin my whole night. It's gonna ruin my next day. And there was a mentality I had that if I didn't like, I would try to make it not bother me. Like if something bothered me, I'd be like, okay, you know what, let me just not make a big deal about it. Let's just move on. And it would, like, while I'm like keeping the negative mindset or like the negative vibes within, like I'm also keeping the good ones in too, if that makes sense. Like I'm not yelling at him, I'm not upset towards him, but I'm not loving on him either. Like I'm not like, hi sweetie, like how are you? But I'm not like, I hate you. You know what I mean? So it's just like keeping in the negative thoughts or towards your husband inside also keeps the positive ones inside as well. So that's why I do recommend you guys to talk about it before going to bed, because I have learned that it's not good.
You don't get sleep.
You do not get sleep. Okay.
Be careful what you say.
I have packed my bags many times and left this man in my mind. I have gone to my bedroom, I've opened up my suitcase, I have put my clothes in, and I have walked out. I think of over the couple of years, and a couple of times I've been really hard, or he said something or whatever that really just cut me to the core. It takes me about 2 days. I just kind of work through it, and then one of my big things is I put myself in his shoes. If I had done the same thing to him, how would he react? How would he get over it? And to know that, you know, I'm in this until death do us part. Either I kill him or he dies naturally. So that's that's how I work. I work through this. I think about, you know, if I had done this to him, what would he be feeling? And yes, I go to bed and we kind of just, there's a big space between us. But eventually, you know, we wake up and we, okay, it's over, let's do, all right, hey honey, how are you doing? That kind of thing. So we do pretty good with getting over it pretty quick. You know, I just think about, you know, like I said, if I was put in his shoes and I had done the same thing to him, how would I be feeling and how would I ask forgiveness on that? So.
Well, I never knew any of that.
Quite a few times.
I'm the bully, but I'm also the baby. So, like, if we're angry and we're going to bed, I can't stand it. I mean, it drives me nuts. So I'm usually the first one to say I'm sorry. I mean, I'll roll over and, I'm sorry, baby.
That is true.
It's okay, honey, because I want her to scratch my back. I want her to rub my head. You know, these things are necessary in order to get proper sleep at night. So I can't get that if we're going to bed angry. So we hardly ever, I can think of twice. Of course, I don't have a good memory. Twice in the last 2 days twice maybe, where it actually lasted a couple of days, 2 or 3 days. And it was miserable. For me, anyway, it was miserable. And so I'm usually the first one to apologize. So I think one thing I learned was that, you know you're going to stay with them, and there's going to be a moment somewhere down the road where you have to make this right in order to continue your relationship. And I have learned that it's so much better to do it quicker than it is to let it just kind of ride. So I'm pretty quick at apologizing to her, asking her forgiveness. And it is usually me, because I'm usually the one mouthing off or saying something or, you know, or doing something by nature. And when we first got married, it wasn't really good at all. Well, our marriage was always good because Elizabeth is very submissive. But I was a real hard individual. And it took me quite a few years to comprehend that, you know, I'm not being a man, I'm being a jerk. And I'm being hard, and I'm being rude, and I'm being ugly. And So how she survived through all that, I'm not really sure. But now it's kind of turned. She's the mean one, and I'm the one that's always apologizing and asking for forgiveness and trying to make things right. But I don't. Maybe a few times went to bed, and I only remember one thing that my wife's ever done that really cut me very, very deep. And I know one thing that I've done that cut her very deep, and you're not ever going to know either one of those things. But it was something that took months to work through. Now, we didn't stay mad at one another for months. We continued with our relationship and loved one another, but the healing wasn't complete. And it took months to do that. So there's going to be times in a relationship that you're not just going to get over something. Some things you're going to say something even though you didn't mean to say it, and it's going to strike a chord that goes way back in their life. And it's just going to hurt really bad, and it's going to take them a long time to get over that, and then vice versa. And I'll counsel you through all of that when the time comes.
One more thing. I will say that when we go through the moments where I'm like totally emotional and totally a wreck, Jesse is so good at just being like, babe, can you just please talk to me? Like, can you just tell me what's going on? Like, he actually motivates me to talk, because sometimes I feel like what I'm about to say is really stupid, or like I shouldn't be emotional about what I'm emotional about, but like he actually encourages communication. So like, guys, I know us girls be like, no, nothing's wrong with me. I'm totally fine. It's a lie. So just keep poking at us, you know what I mean? Just give us like 5 more shots and we'll eventually say what's on our mind. I'm just being real. Is that not right? Yeah. Exactly. All right, thank you.
Can I get an amen?
That's good. Amen.
Just be at a distance when they finally actually say it. Make sure it's a little bit.
All right, that was a good one. All right, let's see. Yeah, you have a question? Go ahead.
What if you're not sorry? I mean, what if differently? What if you did something that you said unintentional? What if you did something unintentional that's just part of your character, and now you're like, okay, well, sorry, you have to deal with it. I didn't mean to do it. I'm sorry that it hurt you, but it's how I feel. Whatever happened.
Gotcha. That would be probably more me towards her, right? So this is just the way I am. This is who I am. And earlier in the relationship, that is kind of how I responded. That's how I responded. But I learned that it doesn't matter if that's my personality. What matters is my spouse's hurt. And so I'm sorry. I am sorry. I'm sorry I hurt you. Even though it's my personality, I did hurt you. And I'm sorry for that. And so I try to find a way to get forgiveness and to get into life. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but you still have to reach that place to where you're sorry that you hurt your spouse, whether you meant it or not, whether it was your personality or not, who you are. You hurt your spouse, and you need to try to mend that. You try to fix that.
That's good. Go ahead.
Also, if you're even thinking about dating or marrying or anything, get the 5 love languages. Those are awesome because it teaches you how you love in your language. And we didn't know that. And his was like words. And so mine, I love affirmation. And the way he would speak to me was not affirmation in my point of view. So it would bring me down. So we learned that when he speaks, he sets me down and he talks to me and says, rah, 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 rah. So that's helped a lot. And I've learned that his love language is acts of service and gifts. Did y'all think about that one? Gifts. So, you learn that, and that way you'll also be able to communicate better if you know their love language.
That's good. That is very true. Learn your significant other's love language. So important.
Can I add something to that too?
Please add something.
We'll talk about our love languages too. So mine is acts of service, and hers, we have multiple, but her main one is going to be touch. So we've learned about ourselves that when she's upset, I actually need to go and be more physical with her, and I feel like I need to just leave her alone and let her have space. No, no, no. Now that I know her love language, I go and I make her laugh, I go and I play with her, and I'm totally the opposite. When I'm upset, don't touch me. Give me my space. And if mine's act of service, if she does something nice for me, then I'll be like, oh, shucks, babe.
That's why I cook for him. When I cook, he's a happy guy.
That is so true.
All right, so it's 7:55. I don't know what does church end right at 8? Or are we okay to keep going? All right, so next question is, how do you tell your spouse that you don't like something they do or something about them without hurting their feelings?
You don't.
Can you talk about that in the mic?
You can only have one, not both.
Not.
My problem is, if there's something that you don't like about her, don't wait 10 years and then tell her.
Yeah.
Tell her, hey, or like I learned 20 years later that he don't like ketchup on his hamburger. You tell me
I
this.
figured after 20 years you'd know I didn't like ketchup.
I just tell me you don't like ketchup. Those kind of things. Don't wait and say, okay, I've lived with you now for 10 years and now you're telling me that you don't like this? Give me a gun. But, that kind of thing. I'm packing my bags now. So, but yeah, if you, just talk about it. Just say, Brother Kyle is great at sitting me down, say, look, this, and this. And I'm like, okay, thank you. I appreciate you letting me know. Your spouse does, thank you. It might hurt her feelings or his feelings, but it's just going to help your marriage. It's just going to help it that much more to know that you don't like this or I don't like that.
Just don't let it fester.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm going to have my feelings hurt quite a bit here in the short future because she never tells me anything that she doesn't like about me. Like, I ask, I'm like, hey, do you like this? And she's always like, it's fine. And that is a problem. So the main thing I do is I make sure that I don't let anything fester. So if there's something that I don't like, first time, I won't say anything. I'm not gonna nitpick at everything. If I'll just let it go. If it's something that keeps happening, then I'll be like, hey, I don't really like that. Because if you let it fester, then your response is what's gonna hurt their feelings because you're not gonna be able to articulate it the way that you should. So yeah.
I think I did this once for you. Like, I told you something that I didn't like, and then you fixed it. So there's this thing that he used to do. It used to just annoy the heck out of me. Like, he would say something that to me might have not been the nicest thing, and then he'd chuckle afterwards. and then in my mind, I'm like, what are you trying to do right now? Like, what, you trying to fight? Like, what is going on? And so I had to let him know because it struck a nerve every time. I'm just like, I just want to throw something at your face, But he hasn't done it since I brought it up. So I think, okay, yeah.
That's really good.
And they did it early on, so that helps.
I was just going to say, try to learn your spouse and learn how to say it without hurting their feelings. Try to figure out how to present it in a positive way. So instead of saying, you look really ugly in brown, say, you look really beautiful in blue, right? And so just encourage, I was exaggerating, oh, she's wearing brown. But she's got some blue on too.
Oh, no.
Thank you. Did y'all get that?
You're beautiful in brown, baby.
But that's true. You gotta know the love language and how to present what it is that you don't like about her.
Yeah, so try to figure out a way to say it positive, to bring about. It's difficult. It's not easy. That's a very difficult and sensitive subject. How to approach your spouse about something you don't like, whether it's something they wear, a habit, something they do, etc. I remember we used to evangelize real quick, and I'd drive, and I had a habit of picking my nose. So I'd pick up my nose right at the edge, So 5 years later, we're in the truck, and she goes, as loud as she could, "Would you stop picking your nose?" She screamed. And I went, "I never knew that bothered you." And it's just a habit. I'm driving. I got 1,500 miles to go. And so anyway, there's a nice way. But that's what Jesse was talking about. If you let it build up, then boom. Okay. Good luck.
Yeah, right? Okay, that's good. Next question. What are some things you can do to get over a severe, deep heartbreak? Like before you were married? Like, what did you do? What are some things you did? If you were in a relationship, what are some things you did to get over the breakup?
I'll tell you what not to do.
Okay.
What not to do is leave that breakup and then try to jump into another relationship. Because I remember in high school, before Jesus days, in high school, I would go, okay, it didn't happen that many times, but what I'm just trying to say is, so like I would go from one broken relationship, had brand new expectations for the next, like this is gonna work out, this is gonna be perfect, but I'm still broken, and try to jump into the next relationship hoping that would work out. I think that's something you shouldn't do in the moments between a breakup and maybe another relationship. I really do feel like you should take the time to get to know yourself, because I remember I had ended a relationship and I was just like, man, I am done with these fools. And I just spent time just getting to know God. I spent time, I wanted to go on a missions trip, so I went on a missions trip. I spent time just learning to hear the voice of God, which I did. There was this one time I was dating this one guy, and I prayed, short story, I prayed and I was like, God, is he my husband? And God was like, no. And then I was like, but are you sure though? Like, are you positive? But I learned to hear the voice of God, in that moment of singleness. It was just me and God. And so when Jesse came around, I didn't even see it coming. Like, I wasn't even seeking for him. I wasn't looking for a relationship at the time, because I was all like, I'm holy. I'm trying to get my life together. I'm paying attention to school. I'm crying over chemistry, biochemistry. I'm trying to get my degree. Like, I wasn't even seeking out for a relationship, because I just decided to take a moment to myself, because I was just like, I need God to fix what's broken in me, because I was so lonely that I was seeking love from somebody else that obviously couldn't give it to me. And being that I was seeking to be a Christian, they obviously weren't going to do it the right way, if you know what I mean. So I do feel like you should take time. If you've just gone through a heartbreak, you need to take time to yourself and just heal.
That was sweet. Very good.
Anybody else have anything to say on that? Or?
What was the question?
What are some things you can do to get over a severe, deep heartbreak?
I mean, everybody knows this, but it's just the way it is. It's going to take time. It really just going to take time. And that goes along with what Sister Gretchen was saying, and that is, don't jump into another relationship. Take the time and let your heart, your feelings, your emotions heal. And, the divorce rate goes up nearly 95% on second marriages. And that's because people bring all of their hurts and their pains and their mistakes and everything into the second marriage. And you put up with something for 20 years in the first marriage, but in the second marriage, you start recognizing things right away. 1 year, 2 year, you're like, I'm not putting up with this for another 15 years. And so the marriage ends immediately. The problem is that you, as an individual, never took the time to heal. And as Sister Gretchen said, find out who you are. Where did you fail in the relationship? Forget about what your partner did. Where did you fail in the relationship? And try to fix you so that the next relationship is better and appropriate. It's just going to take time. I mean, it's one of those things where you need to take the time and learn yourself.
Okay. Anybody else want to say anything? Or no? Okay. Next question. This one might be a little heavy, I don't know. The best advice you have to abstain from sex or sexual acts before marriage, including once you are engaged to be married. Should kissing or physical touch be avoided completely, or does it depend on the couple or setting? I've already had sex with the person I plan on marrying. Now what? and I have already had sex with someone I am no longer with. How do I avoid making the same mistake in a new relationship? Those are just some talking points, like trying to like.
Why didn't you lead with that one?
I could have, but.
So we decided, we weren't very good at this, but we decided that we were going to not kiss for a year, and we lasted 6 months. But we knew. Well, it was difficult because it was difficult because we basically knew that we were gonna marry each other from like the beginning, so we were really just kind of running out the clock. It gets really difficult once you start kissing, like super difficult. And that's why, I think that's a part of the reason why pastors don't like long engagements, because once you know that you're gonna marry the person and you're already, holding hands and kissing is, what's the word?
Dangerous.
It's gateway, but it's actually foreplay. Kissing is actually foreplay.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's like once the kissing starts, the hands get to moving, and then the bodies get closer, and I'm just being real.
Yeah.
And we were made to do that, and so we move in that direction. Luke is back there. Yeah. So that's.
When is the wedding?
So we don't. It's kind of taboo to talk about not kissing, but it's if you plan on marrying that person and you know that you're not in the place to marry yet, or you have a time to wait, it's probably a good idea to try not to. It would be easier on yourselves, because it was a struggle after we started kissing.
Very good.
Yeah.
So I want to make one comment to this. Everyone in this room, when it comes to this subject, is a loser. There are no winners in this room. None. And that's why the Bible says, flee youthful lust. You will never win this battle. Never. If you put yourself in a position that you can do something you shouldn't do, you will do it. You will lose every single time. You will never win. Even if it's what Jesse was talking about. You started out kissing, and then the progression, maybe the first date, second date, third date, because we all know how it works, right? Took you forever to get to here, but on that next date, you don't go back here. You start right where you left off, and that's how it is. That's the progression. You failed right here. You didn't fail here. You didn't fail when you did this. You failed right here from the very beginning. If you put yourself in a position that you can yield, you will. There is no defense. None. You can talk in tongues, read the Bible, fast 4 days. If you get along with that girl that night, it's going to happen. There is no level of spirituality, doesn't exist, that's going to stop you from yielding in your flesh if you open the door for it. Because you failed when you opened the door. When you did that act, you were already in the position for failure. The only position of success when it comes to not touching or going too far with someone that you're dating is not to be in that position at all. If you do something that, and here's the place, we lie to ourselves, right? But if you do something that arouses your flesh, you've gone too far. So when you kiss the person you're with, if it arouses any other hair If it's the little guy on the back of your ear, if anything at all, you're already 2-4. It's time to back out. Problem is, you're not going to back out. So you can't go there. So kiss her on the cheek with mama standing next to you, and everybody's safe. Outside of that, I'll do the christening.
I remember younger when I didn't get to start dating until I was 16, and I would pay my sister Christy $5. Go on the date with me. Just go on the date with me. Just keep me safe. Go on the date with me. Oh, fine. I'll sit in the back seat. And then Janet, my cousin, every time she went on a date, she goes, "Sit between us. Sit between us." I'm like, you got to be kidding. So yeah, you try to put things out there to keep you from going too far. You be with groups. Always be with a group. Never walk alone. Be by yourself in any situation.
I was just going to say a good practice for young men and young women as people of children of the Most High God. We want to make sure that you don't find yourself alone with the opposite sex. As being in music for a very long time, that's something that I have practiced religiously. When I did my music lessons, made sure that someone was in the house. Getting rides with people, I'm telling you, those cars, you're in the car alone with the opposite sex, anything can happen. So that's something that you should definitely steer clear of. If you're in a relationship, if you want to guard your relationship, make sure that you don't find yourself alone with the opposite sex ever, with the person who you're in a relationship with or anyone else outside of that.
That's right.
That's good.
You will lose.
All right, we're going to finish up with one more question. We do have more questions, but I think that we can probably do this again. So we'll go ahead with this last question. How do you prioritize your closest friendships and family relationships once you are married? How do you handle moving far away from your family and friends? How did your spouse help?
Where's your mama?
Did you have to move far away from?
Thank God we moved too.
Oh, that's a good thing.
It was easy.
No, we got the greatest. I got the greatest in-laws in the world. I really do. They're wonderful people. Great cook. What was the question?
How do you prioritize your closest friendships and family relationships
That's what I
once
wanna
you're
say.
married?
Okay, so I want to touch on one little subject, and this is something I've seen here in other churches, etc. We'll just pick on Jesse and Gretchen. So Jesse's got a bunch of single friends, and Gretchen's got a bunch of single friends. And then you get married, and one of the problems that I have seen could potentially become a problem in a relationship is that the guy continues to want to go out and hang out with his single friends, and the girl wants to continue to go out and hang out with her single friends because you have not made couple friends yet, right? That's all you know. This is all you know. You just know single friends. So you have to start working, not immediately, but you have to start working on curbing that. And especially if you're doing it too much. And it's extremely important that the moment you get married, you start making friends with other couples, because your conversation changes. Life experiences changes, and it is not healthy for a young single man, for a young married man to hang around with 4 or 5 single boys, young men, and then get caught up in a conversation where he's talking about things that only other married young men should be hearing. And because it's not messing with you because you're experiencing it, you're living it, but they're not. And the same thing with women, especially girls, because they talk more than guys, right? I mean, about intimate. They're more emotional, they're more feelings, they get deeper in their subject is what I meant by that. And the other thing too, I meant both. They talk a lot, but they get deeper. Okay, so you get a married young girl and she's sitting with some single young girls, and she can start talking about subjects that I know my daughter, if I can pick on Hannah, I remember her coming into the bedroom one night, and you could just see the expression on her face. She was scored for life. And what had happened was one of her young friends who was married was in the bedroom with 2 or 3 other girls, and she started talking about married things. And so Hannah just kind of excused herself, out of, this was years ago, but when she was 13, 14 years old, I mean, she was just young, or 15, something like that. She just kind of made her way out of the room and then came into Mom and Dad's room, which we were sound asleep at the time, but woke us up and, began to talk. And I'm listening to this conversation. So my point is, it's important that you start finding couples, because you need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to, a young lady needs to be able to discuss with other married young ladies, and you can talk about things, and young guys can talk about things. So with friendships, you have to begin to curve your friendships. Family, it's straightforward, it's biblical. Concerning, it's always God first, it is spouse is second, children are third, and family or fourth. Children are visitors. They're all going to grow up and leave. And I have seen families get torn apart because they've let their kids get in the middle of their relationship. Our kids have never gotten in the middle of our relationship, because one day they're gone. And when they're gone, what are you left with? You're left with the woman that you hounded on all of your life, or vice versa, she hounded on you, and let the kids just bring anger amongst you and all of this stuff, and so you get all upset. And then now they're gone, and now you're just 2 mean old mad people. Yep. And so it's God first, spouse second, children third, family fourth. You don't let your family come in as well. Now I'm doing marriage counseling now, so I'm sorry. Okay.
We have a question.
Question, go ahead.
In regards to not being, like, a married couple not being friends with single people, would you say the same in reverse? Like, if you're single, try not to hang out with too many married people, like, it would have a negative effect on you?
Yeah, it's possible. We're not saying obviously I am not saying that marrieds and unmarrieds can't be friends. We have this all through the church, and we have a blast. We do all kinds of things together. We have fun. I'm really talking about intimate relationships. So I'm talking about really close, not acquaintances or casual or like we do for the most part. But your best friends, if you're married, your best friends need to become marrieds. And if you're not married, your best friends should be single, because that's where you're going to discuss the deepest, most intimate conversations, and you need to be able to talk to someone that's on the same level.
Okay. Did you guys want to chime in with anything, or? All right, I think we're done. Pastor, would you mind praying over Hyphen and their relationships, and some of our married Hyphen?
Lord, bless all these pure, holy, undefiled minds in this room tonight. I pray, God, that you help us as we walk with you, and that we learn that the answer is that we continue to pursue a relationship with you, and all these other things will be added. I pray, God, that we would allow ourselves to be attentive and know that what we've heard tonight is true and real, and we need to apply it to ourselves. One of the things, God, that we want to be able to have when we walk down the aisle with the one that you gave us is integrity, and we want to have self-respect. I pray, God, that you restore that in every person that's in this room. You're the forgiver of our sins. No matter what we've done, no matter how bad or wrong it is, you are the lover of our souls. And I ask, God, that we would somehow find that place that we forgive ourselves, and that we accept your forgiveness, and that self-respect is restored in the hearts and the minds and the spirits of every young man and woman that's in this room. And help us to go forward from this moment and to do better and to try harder, and not to put ourselves in a position where we will yield, We pray, God, help us in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, guys, I love you.